Hi folks, we're Tacitus. Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. I'd like to, in this essay, explore some of the issues in and around the Trump's New York case where that activist hack, Judge Engeron, and the even more malicious activist hack, Letitia James, have gone after Trump for a victimless alleged crime that never actually occurred or existed. In terms of lawfare and creative invention of crimes, then this rates way up there. It should have been thrown out by the judge, or any independent judge would have thrown it out. And given again there was no victim and no crime, it's impossible or inconceivable that a jury or anyone could have found Trump guilty. Nonetheless, an activist judge, an activist prosecutor, a stacked jury, and there you go, a guilty verdict comes. Why that isn't being investigated by federal authorities is, if there's a crime that's occurred, that's it. You can get that many people colluding to break the law and subvert due legal process. That is the crime. Nonetheless, so the verdict was rendered, and Trump has to pay according to the court, has to pay a fine, and there's interest payments and everything accruing on a daily basis while the appeal's being heard. And the matter's going through the New York Appeals Court now. Now the Appeals Court is one step below the New York Supreme Court, so there's still avenues of appeal. And if the New York Supreme Court, after that, there's the United States Supreme Court. So there's no shortage of appeal avenues open to Trump, and there's no doubt in my mind he'll win. If he doesn't win here in the New York Appeals Court, then I would say it's almost guaranteed he'll win in one of the other two. So the idea that activist hack goon flunky Letitia James is going to get away with this, I don't think it's, in my opinion, an activist flunky hack goon. And to so brazenly campaign for Attorney General on the basis of I'm going to get Trump, and then the judge not to consider that as an issue in the case and throw it out again is quite beyond me. Nonetheless, let's have a look at the appeal. Now, the appeal court's got 5 judges in it. And just looking at the case, the way the Attorney General, this is Letitia James, deputy, she's a white woman. I don't know if she's Jewish or not. She's a white woman in her early 30s, and there's a factory where they make these chicks, these lawyer chicks that end up being prosecutors and legal aid lawyers and all that sort of thing. There is a factory that make them somewhere. And if you go and listen to one talking in Australia or talking in Britain or talking in the United States, you'd swear they were just cloned off the same original piece of cloth. It's interesting. She starts her. This is the Attorney General's lawyer. Doesn't excuse me, doesn't sound particularly impressive, but she starts her thing, and straight away the judges are asking questions, and they clearly have read the briefs that have been provided, which is always a good sign. When you go into court and find the judge has read nothing and knows nothing, and you go, oh shit, let's start from the beginning. So she starts the chick for the Attorney General's department starts her thing, and almost immediately, within a few seconds, really, the judges, or one of the judges anyway, and then a couple of others chime in, start asking quite legitimate and I think quite sensible questions about the solidity and the veracity of the case against Trump. And they ask some quite good questions. Now, the nub of it is, and I'll summarize this down. I mean, I could go on for a while, but I'll summarize it down. The claim is that somehow Trump overvalued his assets, his real estate assets, overvalued his assets. And because of that, he was able to get a more favorable loan terms and conditions from I think it was Deutsche Bank, DBB, was able to get more favourable conditions. Otherwise, it would have been the case. Part of those favourable conditions were a lower interest rate, given that the risk assessment by Deutsche Bank was such that it was a lower category of risk and thus a lower interest rate. The way it tends to work in these things, the higher the risk, the higher the interest rate. So anyway, this is the claim that's been made, that the assets were overvalued. Now, the case on the other side is that Deutsche Bank is a big international, very sophisticated player. They've got their own valuers, they've got their own lawyers, they've got an army of accountants and all sorts of people to look over it, and they were completely happy with the deal. They did not believe the assets were overvalued. Everything was paid back. Deutsche Bank lost nothing. They made every penny of profit they had intended to at the outset of the deal. So there's no victim. Nobody was harmed. Nobody went unpaid. Nobody. So it was no crime at all, given that the parties to the agreement agreed to it and continued to agree to it and were satisfied at the end of it that all the conditions and obligations they'd made to each other were fully satisfied. So the idea that someone can then 10 years or however many years later say, well, you know what, those assets were overvalued. Well, compared to what? Real estate values can be volatile. So on what basis are they? Well, and that was never successfully argued. It was just asserted they were overvalued. And as far as I can tell, it was never proven. Now, without an activist judge and a stacked jury, they wouldn't have got anywhere. But anyway, in that case, so the level of fines and penalties were even if you could argue there was some sort of overvaluation, the levels of fines and penalties far exceed any financial benefit anyone may have acquired over the term of the loan, given the differential interest rates that could have occurred, that might have occurred. Now, the bank still has absolute discretion over what interest rates it charges based on what it thinks is the quality of the deal. For example, Trump was putting up a lot of collateral with his existing real estate holdings. So the bank was satisfied that if the whole thing went sour, like the business transaction all fell over or something like that they would be able to mitigate any losses by the collateral that Trump had put up. So everybody was happy. And now again, Deutsche Bank were sophisticated players, big international players who were doing big ticket financial real estate and other financial transactions all the time. These were heavy hitters, and as indeed was Trump at the time in the real estate game. So everybody was happy. So the idea that even something that's past the statute of limitations, you can dig up and use that's drawing a very long bow. And clearly it's a politically motivated, quite clearly, it's a very malicious and politically motivated subversion of, I would argue, subversion of the law. Anyway, the questions that the appeal judges were asking were I think, relevant and addressed those issues of concern. So if nobody was harmed, if the bank was completely happy with the arrangement, the bank did their own valuation, so they agreed with Trump's valuation. So what's the issue here? So the Attorney General's Department, again, the malicious, politicized prosecutor, the Attorney General's Department said, well, what would have happened is that if Trump hadn't valued his assets so highly, then Deutsche Bank would have stress tested the valuation and they would have come up with a lower valuation. And therefore, now how they know this, is beyond me. How do they know what Deutsche Bank would have done at the time? The idea that, well, Deutsche Bank would have come up with a lower valuation, they would. And you know that. How exactly? So this is all surmising, and again, it comes back to this ideological application of law. We know what someone's intention was. So if we call someone an asset, we know whatever they were doing or did do or wanted to do or thought about doing was all bad. We don't need evidence. We've already predetermined that they're Nazis. Therefore, anything and everything they do is bad. And this is really the whole nub of the case against Trump. Orange man bad, therefore anything he does bad. Hey, we don't have to prove it. We just need to say it. And that's an area of ideological law that you see playing out in, for example, divorce courts every day. Well, he's a straight white male. We know he's bad. We don't have to prove anything. Studies by angry lesbian feminists, gender studies, have said that all men are a violent rapist, oppressor, and wife batterers. We don't have to prove that. We just need to say it. And so this pre-demonization ideological structuring of legal cases is what they used against Trump here, and really is what the whole case rested on, given there again was no victim, and the parties to the transaction were completely happy with the transaction at the outset and at the conclusion of it as well. There was no disputes. They weren't sending each other nasty letters or something. So anyway, the lawyers were the judges and the appeal court were asking this lawyer questions. Now, the way she responded was this sort of bouncy little New York chick thing. Oh yeah, well, he was bad. He was bad. Oh yeah, he was bad. Yeah. Ha baby, bad. And it was quite clear, certainly to my thinking, that she'd never actually been in an environment ever in her life where she was A, being asked questions, and B, where the people didn't necessarily, around her, the judges in this case, didn't necessarily agree with her. It appears the way she presents it and the way she responds to questions, that she's never been in a situation where the people around the judges or whatever don't agree with her. She's only ever walking in the situation where everyone's agreed. Orange man bad. Yeah. All straight white men, Nazis. Yeah. And she's never been in a situation where she actually gets questions or where people don't just rush to agree with her, or where she's not preaching to an already ideologically delusional gallery. And she didn't seem to know what to do. So she tried to, I wouldn't write her off as an idiot, by the way. She's not that, the lawyer. And there'd obviously been a lot. In the Attorney General's Department in New York, there's something like 3,000 employees. Can you believe it? What the fuck do they all do? There's a lot of people who prepared papers and briefs for her that she reads off. I'm not sure she really understood what she was reading. I don't think she did actually in some cases. So she was citing, say, case law or precedents, legal. And the precedents didn't really apply. And the appeal judges managed to pick up, hold on, that case is about something else, though. That's not this. And then this Attorney General's lawyer tried to double use something. So say that, it's evil if Trump does it, but it's okay if anyone else does it. These sorts of things. So quite a number of inconsistencies that it's like she was reverting back to a kid who was in law school, doing some little sort of law question for the class in the law school. She reverted back to that. In fact, the sophistication, the way she put things together, suggests that she hadn't really progressed very far out of the law school. And this is not surprising, given she stayed, I would argue, in a little ideological sort of vacuum where everybody who is around her agrees, orange man bad, everyone's a Nazi, and da. So anyway, the questions came in. I don't know how it's going to sort of play out, but I don't think she handled the questions well at all. I don't think she answered the questions. And I think that the serious questions the judges asked, look, there was no victim here. Why are you chasing a crime that has no victim? The argument that they're trying to use, as I understand it at least, the argument that the AG is trying to use, okay, well, all right, then there was no victim, we accept that. But because of the artificial overvaluation that they argue occurred, that none of the people to the transaction have said that there was any overvaluation. They're saying the overvaluation creates a market distortion, which meant that people who overvalue things can artificially get lower interest rates they otherwise would not have got, and therefore this is somehow dangerous to the market at large. They can't prove how it's dangerous or what way it's dangerous, or that it would be or is. and the type of precedents that they used did not apply here. They were different, so you could throw the precedents out the window. So the Attorney General's is relying very heavily on an activist court with activist judges that already agree with them. Orange man bad, let's get him. But these judges, certainly by the type of questions they asked, were not falling in line there. Now maybe that was just window dressing, so they want to appear that they're asking the piercing questions, whereas they're all ideologically on board with the Attorney General's department. But it'd be sad and a horrible indictment of the American legal system if you could get a majority of appeal judges, I think there were 5, a majority of appeal judges to go along with the blatantly malicious activism and ideological insanity of the AG's department. So I'm thinking that one or two, either they'll overturn it outright. I'm not sure they do that because they don't want to embarrass Engeron and those sort of people, and they don't want to bring as they would see it, bring the legal system in New York into utter and total disrepute and just overturn the whole thing. So I think they'll water it down and say, look, the fine is insane, it's out of all proportions, and reduce the amount of things that Trump's accused, overturn sort of line item issues within within the conviction, or say, well, look, you got it wrong on points A, B, C, and D, and then return it to the court. So look, you can't convict Trump on these things. So if you want to, you need to revisit this, and you either need to find better cause, more substantive cause, or you need to declare him non-guilty and send it back to the court. So in that way, the court could save face and the legal system could save face. So I think they'll try some face-saving thing, would be my take on where this will go. But fortunately, they were asking questions, and I don't think the Attorney General's lawyer, who talks like a fucking schoolgirl, by the way, I don't think the lawyer handled it very well. Even though, again, I don't think she's an idiot. I don't think the lawyer was able to ask the questions and clearly seemed to be out of sorts that she was being even asked questions at all. You've been attached to us today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.